Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nasira Abrams, and today my group and I will be discussing our topic, namely continuing professional development. We'll be referring our topic to a South African, a United Kingdom, as well as an Australian perspective. This presentation will be conducted by Justin Johnson, as well as myself, Nasira Abrams, and Nandan Yakaza, and we'll be discussing our topic in terms of chapter 20 within the prescribed textbook of this year. An introduction to CPD. According to Mike Canal, an advisor on learning at the Chartered Institute of Personnel Development, training is referred to as action undertaken by an employer, whereas CPD is referred to an action undertaken by employees. Continuing professional development, also known as CPD, is crucial for the human resource development practitioners due to the years, the hours, the days, the months, weeks that these people spend developing others whilst neglecting their self-development. What are the various factors that encourages people's CPD choices? The quantity, the type, and the various topics of CPD changes constantly, as well as the providers, which are those people providing us with these things. The latest legislative initiatives, such as the new broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Codes and the National Qualifications Act, leads to the new development of new tasks and obstacles that requires that new information skills should be learned. For example, the new information technology that comes into place. Sometimes companies may need to enforce new technological systems in which everyone needs to be familiar with. So the government additionally may also decide to promote an act only for the HR profession based on how CPD occurs within that profession. So according to the National Qualifications Act of 2008, the South African Qualifications Authority, as most of you know, also known as SAQA, has been encouraged to establish policy and criteria so that professional bodies can be acknowledged whilst registering professional designations for the purposes of this act. The HR professional body, which most of us are also aware of, known as the South African Board of People Practices, also known as SAPPP, was one of the first 8 professional bodies that registered professionals to be acknowledged by SAQA. This implies that HR professionals was the first profession within the country or nationwide that were recorded on the National Learners Records database at SAQA. The historical development of CPD. So how far does CPD goes back? CPD dates back to the 1960s, with a clear meaning of the term arising in a publication in 1962 that entailed the conceptual scheme aimed at ensuring lifelong learning for physicians. CPD only became a basis for recertification and not improvement by the 1970s. However, by the 1980s, planned programs were widespread amongst the longer established careers. In addition, based on the profession service studies, when deciding on company perks, employees would decide to participate in development programs that would uplift their skills instead of participating in programs such as gym memberships or being able to have a travel allowance, car allowance, etc. This is because due to the volatile business environment, such as incidents, example for earthquakes, tsunamis, or such as the recent pandemic, people would rather prefer to develop their skills and enhance themselves. This is also evident within Australia, where intelligent employees should ensure that this need is fulfilled, and to ensure that these development and skills needs are fulfilled, people and employers need to prioritize talent programs, as there is a clear link between development and return on investment. Within Australian companies, employees are given a certain budget and they are required to only remain within that budget that allows them to participate in career management and career development programs. So what is CPD? CPD is a concept that focuses on the requirements towards a structured and strict approach to private study. Back then, people used to read professional journals, and based on what you read in that journal, that was the type of knowledge or the type of skills that you gained. However, the rise of outcomes-based thinking encourages a shift from hours, which is the quantity, towards the assessment of outcomes and perks gains, also known as the quality. This approach sorry, changed the CPD idea from quantity to hours, and it is known as the quantitative leap. Included within the workplace, it's also personal commitment in which you yourself have to complete, and it ensures that you're on par with changes such as technological changes. As I've mentioned, a lot of things are happening within the country, within the world, and along with the fourth industrial revolution, it is of utmost importance to be on par with changes, etc. So people might have been involved in CPD, but an important aspect of CPD is that one needs to formally record the learning process, thus giving evidence and proof that you have participated within that CPD. So what is CPD not? CPD is not just an extra activity aimed at becoming a member of a professional body, manages formal training programs, or an activity that involves the need to not work or a need in order to gain an academic qualification. So why choose CPD? Many professional bodies have been requesting for proof as CPD as a basic need for their members, and the rationale involves that nobody expects, for example, a doctor or lawyer and accountant to only be dependent on the knowledge and the comprehension that they gained at the time. It is important that sound professionals are involved in a journey of self-engagement or enhancement by acknowledging other approaches done or recorded by other people, and by taking from that, using from that, and as well as using your own to try and implement that to others. In addition, these professionals can also they can also implement their approaches by guiding others through sharing their best practices and their insights. So CPD is equally about enhancing one's current skills as well as it is about obtaining new skills. Every professional, whether employed by a company or whether you're self-employed, you must ensure that you stay updated to the profession, the technology, and the society at large changes, because it is utmost important to always be aware of what's going on around you. You need to remain up to date. Individuals are more prone to have adequate knowledge, skills, and attitudes, which comprises of the whole spectrum of educational success and achievement. So why choose CPD? There is an integrated approach that has been regularly demonstrated in business and has resulted in the following measurable benefits. It is divided into the organization and the individual. So for the organization, it maximizes employees' potential. So employees have more potential to be employed within higher positions or in different sections that they have particular potential in. It sustains the company to the knowledge economy. The company becomes more knowledgeable and it becomes more competitive within the market. You optimize the payback gain from learning and development expenditures. The adoption of a creative and dynamic culture. It increases alignment of the business goals, the yearly plans, and personal development. It encourages career planning and promotion procedures. It increases recruitment and the retention of employees, and it raises the organization's profile and benchmarks the company against the industry or the best professional practices. So for the individual, it allows for tools to be aware of the skills and knowledge needed for the future. I also used a study, this is a study tip that I use. I follow the Pacori approach, in which I say the process to plan carefully on how to acquire them, the guidance on how to obtain and to reflect on your learning experience, and being able to evaluate and assess the extent to which the achievement of your learning outcomes were achieved. So being actively devoted to CPD will ensure it improves your curriculum vitae, so you become more competent. More companies would want to hire you because your CV has been updated and it's been enhanced. It confirms professional recognition. It showcases one's achievements. It accelerates your career prospects, so you have more opportunities out there, opportunities of companies that might come out looking for you. It allows individuals to request and demand higher salaries and perks, and it encourages increased job satisfaction. So personal development is obtained through, we have intuitive, which is a natural process of gaining information. For example, such as sitting in a lecture room, that's how you gain information or knowledge naturally. Incidental occurs by chance after reviewing activities that are normally done. Retrospective, it occurs when reviewing activities that occurred before and explaining what was actually gained. And then lastly, we have prospective, which is planning a development activity and reviewing it afterwards. In practice, obtaining new knowledge and skills or improving on your current ones can occur in work and on the job if conducted in a structured and conscious way where people can gain as much as possible. So the comparability with other countries. It is known that CPD is not only a South African approach that is taken, and it is visible within other countries as well. I'll now be speaking about the Australia Human Resource Institute and how CPD is conducted within Australia. So CPD within Australia means to always keep up to date and constantly giving to improve. It is also the key towards improving career opportunities now and for the future. It is important that professional development is a constant process applied through a person's working life. Individuals are responsible for controlling, managing, and capturing their own development. Thirdly, they must recognize their learning needs and they must know how to fulfill them. These learning targets must be clearly communicated, so it must be clear and concise, and they must reflect the needs of employers, the client, and the practitioner's individual goals. Effective learning is also an integral part of all work activity. And lastly, CPD must entail a balanced mixture of activities, including work-based activities. This will include reflecting on work experiences in the form of case studies, doing job shadowing or work shadowing with another colleague, or coaching or mentoring, mentoring from other colleagues. Seminars, courses, conferences, as well as self-directed informal learning, which I also mentioned. It is important to always read the news, read articles, read journal articles, to always be up to date, and by doing this yourself. So CPD assists the HRI professional members too. It requires that members complete at least 90 hours of CPD every 3 years to maintain their professional membership status. It also acknowledges 7 learning types, namely formal education, which is going on a formal course, conducting research, or being involved in a classroom lecture. Learning activities, conferences and seminars, presentation of papers, being involved in the industry, service to the HR profession, such as going into an industry and being and conducting HR related work, as well as informal learning. I'll now discuss comparability with the United Kingdom. So within the United Kingdom, CPD has been a champion. CIPD in the United Kingdom has been a champion for CPD, and it is a requirement for all. Has been a champion for CPD, and it is a requirement for all 4 members. Members are required to structure and keep records of the CPD, as it is required that all professional qualified members provide proof when wanting to upgrade their membership. So the essential principles are that development must be continuous so that professionals always seek higher performance. Development must be owned and managed by the individual, but must be administered by the professional body. CPD is personal, and the individual must know what needs to be learned so that they continue learning from the point that they stop learning. Learning outcomes must be clear and serve the organization's clients and the individual's goals. And lastly, continuous investment of time and learning is of utmost important and which form the basis of CPD as a whole. Performance indicators. So practitioners must demonstrate that they are able to. I follow the MPRI approach, so that's how I use it to study this information. So firstly, they must be able to manage their own CPD and personal development through system whilst using appropriate strategies, frameworks, and techniques. They must provide proof of the self-managed CPD process in their own format. So this format will be in a way that individuals will understand their CPD process. I should be able to reflect and learn from their work and professional experience, including informal and formal learning opportunities. And lastly, they must identify personal enhancement or development needs and translate these into objectives or PDPs, which are also known as personal development plans. So the knowledge indicators. Practitioners must also comprehend and explain the self-managed CPD process, which entails the philosophies, the principles, the practices of CPD, and the personal development and lifelong learning. I usually refer to the philosophies, principles, and practices as the 3 Ps, and then the additional Ps, personal development and lifelong learning. So CIPD policies and the know-how techniques and strategies for the self-managed process. They must also present CPD evidence in various ways that entails the CPD process. In addition, learning opportunities and reflection should entail the range of learning activities, whether it's formal, informal, whether it's work-related or personal. It must be accessible to all individuals and it must be appropriate to the CIPD. These practitioners must ensure that they have reflection skills alone and with others so that these reflection is valid in terms of personal learning or helping others to learn and develop. This must be understood. Lastly, personal development plans must balance individual and work goals and objectives and must support the networks available to the profession. Sometimes there are particular networks available for a certain profession and it must coincide with that particular network available. So as additional research that I've conducted, I have like a 5-step way in which beginners can get involved with CPD, and I've done this by explaining it in 5 steps. So firstly, keep a learning log to record your records and insights or any learning ideas you're learning about. So try to keep a diary or write notes to yourself. Always write down or jot down any ideas or learning activities that you have gone through in order to reflect on what you've learned so that you can know what else needs to be learned to explore it further. Secondly, always ask yourself where you are in your career and where you want to be. So think to yourself, what do you want and where would you like to be? Always plan and set out that goals for yourself. Thirdly, seek out CPD training activities that relates to your personal needs. So being involved, as we are in a pandemic, being involved in distance learning or online courses, there is various courses that you can be involved in so that you can connect your personal needs with your professional needs and so that there can be a sense of balance in that regard. And then lastly, take on roles outside of the workplace, such as developing leadership skills by coaching a soccer team or being involved in a youth project, or as that will enhance your communication, your people skills, it will enhance your teamwork skills, and which will ultimately benefit towards your personal and professional development. And once you've done these few steps, it can be reviewed every 3 months to ensure that you are committed to not only personal development but also towards the professional development within your particular career. That is my presentation, and I will now hand over to the next presenter.
Good day, class. My name is Justin Johnson and I will be continuing to speak on continuing professional development. First things first, we're going to speak about managing human resources development. CPD is a requirement for all full members and the overall aims of it are to teach planned CPD, to show that it is a valuable activity, that it should be an integral part of CPID membership, that CPD develops and is reflective of a person's skills and that by learning you learn to learn. The learning opportunities are wide-ranging and can be taught and be part of the real work environment. You will become a thinking performer and a reflective practitioner. CPD will develop management skill plans and enable you to reflect and manage yourself. The overall objectives of CPD. CPD principles and practices will ensure you meet your work objectives. You demonstrate management skills, show how you plan, reflect and manage yourself. To ensure that all learning and development is captured, which is not always shown on your CV. To provide additional support to a CV. The overall achievements are CPD shows that you have learned. CPD is evidence that you have reflected on your work experience. CPD shows that you thought about where you are going next. CPD means that you should continually bring new ideas and approaches to the work environment. CPD shows that you can work professionally under changing circumstances. CPD shows that you can continue to learn, develop and utilize a range of methods to learn, thereby developing personally and professionally. The skills achieved are shared learning, recognized personal skills and achievements within your organization, within your business role, and how CPD plays a part in that development. Commitment to ongoing development, the management of your own business, learning and development. Apart from the above general HR, CPD models, various other international bodies also provide opportunities for professional development in the field of HRD. For example, the Association of Talent Development has been a champion for professional HRD practices throughout the world. What counts as CPD? In theory, anything can count towards evidence of CPD if you can demonstrate that you have learned something from the activity. If you have a new skill or new knowledge, if you intend to do something differently because of a learning experience, then this can count as evidence of your CPD. It is the outcome and how this impacts your professional role that is important. In some countries, CPD is not only informal learning, it can be very structured and has unit standards and certification as an end result. In other countries, the approach is far more relaxed. Who does CPD affect? CPD embraces individuals, organizations, professions, and the overall economy. By individuals, that all individuals keep their CPD up to date so that their value is retained in a rapidly changing marketplace. Organizations, that employees facilitate the professional development of the employees by providing support in accordance with the business goals. Professions, CPD driven by professional bodies, ensure that the professionals practicing in a field are kept up to date and that they continually developed according to the new trends, skills and competencies required, thereby maintaining the status and credibility of all professionals. The overall economy, that the CPD program contributes to the improvement of the country's national competitiveness by helping to upgrade the skills knowledge base of the country. While CPD is ultimately the individual person's responsibility, its widespread and effective practices requires the cooperation, encouragement and support of employers, academic institutions, government agencies, professional bodies and other relevant structures. It should be the wish of every person involved in CPD to stimulate lifelong learning in line with the best international practice. That is the reason why some universities like the University of South Africa encourage HR graduates to register as HR professionals with the SABPP. Even when their formal studies have been completed, these individuals are expected to engage in their own professional development. The variety of approaches to CPD. Formal courses. Formal courses may be offered by colleges, schools, universities, and private vendors or industries. They may extend across a term or semester and involve some combination of evenings and weekends. Some formal courses may be considered as CPD if the intent is to update the professional abilities outside of enrolling in a degree or program. Some professional bodies may approve certain courses. Workshops and seminars. Educational events that are short-term in nature from 1 to 5 days fall into this category. A workshop typically involves some experimental learning such as role-playing or scenario-based discussions. Conferences. The gathering of professionals in a conference venue provides opportunities for CPD. Participants can select from workshops, general sessions, specific streams, as well as setting for social interaction and personal networking. Conferences offer a broad spectrum of formal and informal educational events, and the social context is tempting to many. However, not all conference happenings are acceptable for CPD. For example, a breakfast session followed by a brief 30-minute talk is not necessarily sufficient for a purpose of CPD. Tutorials, sometimes confused with independent study. The tutorial includes both the face-to-face and electronic interaction, plus whatever research, reading and or studying is done by the student in preparation for that interaction. As we move on, Independent studying and reading. The independent study involves work that is done entirely by the student without any input from a lecturer or facilitator. Such study may be of short or long-term duration and needs to be carefully documented if presented as evidence of CPD. Presentations and publishing. Delivering a paper or writing an article, chapter or book involves considerable research and study, although it's not always recognized as CPD. Mentoring and coaching. Being mentored or coached by another professional can also offer value opportunities for CPD, especially if these relationships are well structured and supported with clear documentation and action plans for development. You guys can also see chapter 10. Learning options for CPD. There are three learning options, namely structured, semi-structured, and unstructured. We start at structured. Examples are interactive and highly participative training courses, seminars, branch and regional meetings with formal lectures that include active participation in a CETA board or committee. Semi-structured. These are non-interactive lectures, talks, informal branch and regional meetings of a more social nature. These may be accepted as CPD if approved as relevant. Unstructured. Typical examples are distance and open learning study which is not assessed and does not lead to a qualification. The reading of professional and technical journal books and other publications. Relevant aspects of on-the-job training where specific outcomes have been planned and identified. Next we will move on to the core competencies of the thinking performer. The latest thinking about employees is that they should be thinking performers. This means that they defined the qualities the SA Board for People Practices expects, or the SABPP. Let's start by number 1. They have personal drive and effectiveness as well as a positive can-do mentality. They are anxious to find ways around obstacles and are willing to exploit all the available resources in order to accomplish their objectives. Number 2. They set out their own professional objectives with a prioritized plan for managing time, which means they are punctual. Number 3. They establish priority tasks and work schedule in advance to maximize efficiency and added value effectiveness, and above all, to ensure being available to get advice and guidance to meet the needs of senior management, line managers, and employees generally. Number 4. They monitor progress and take remedial action as necessary. Number 5. They anticipate resource problems and seek to resolve them productively. Number 6. They identify their own motivators and strengths and use these to drive their personal performance. In 2012, the HR Professional Body of South Africa launched a National HR Competency Model. The competency model right here is made up of the 5 HR capabilities, the 5 core competencies, and the 4 pillars, which I will discuss in this video accordingly. The competency model. A competency model is an important component for any profession as it clearly expresses what professionals in that field should be able to deliver. An HR competency model provides a foundation for the continuous professional development, or CPD, as we have been discussing this whole time, of HR professionals. The competency model consists of 3 broad areas of competence: the 4 pillars of professionalism that form the square shape of the house as the foundation for professional HR practice, which is this right here. Five competency needed by HR professionals to do high quality HR work. They constitute the building blocks. The building blocks right there. And the 5 HR capabilities required to ensure strategic HR input that form the roof, which is this right here. The HR competency model is based on the following design principles. The competency model emerges from the design principles that is based on an overarching HR profession map covering all functions, elements and components of the HR profession. While there was a clear intention to learn from previous models, the overall approach used was to integrate the best elements of other models based on leading HR competencies worldwide. Having said that, SABPP decided not to duplicate global models, because despite global benchmarking, HR in South Africa is unique and peculiar to a very specific context and can be relevant to South Africa with a unique local focus. The model achieves a balance between personal, business, and HR competencies. While we can learn from other HR competency models over the past 30 years, a clear focus on the need and requirements for the present and future HR operating environment guided the developers of the SAPPP's HR competency model. The model must be general enough to be internalized by all HR professionals, irrespective of the level in the organization or area of specialization. The four pillars of HR professionalism form the foundation of the model. Duty to society. HR professionals have a duty to deliver high-quality HR work that has a positive impact on society. Ethics. HR professionalism should contribute to ethics in organization and drive ethics in accordance with the SAPPP's HR Guide on Ethics. Professionalism. HR professionals should manage themselves professionally and act and behave like true professionals in the standard of HR work they deliver. HR and business knowledge. HR professionals must have good HR and sound business knowledge if they want to be successful and have professional strategic partners. The 5 core competencies of HR: leadership and personal credibility. All HR professionals possess leadership skills to drive the HR profession. Likewise, HR professionals should have personal credibility in organizations, irrespective of the level of seniority in the organization. But they can be credible only if they deliver a high level of competence in executing professional HR work. Organizational capability. Understanding the organizational context and needs of the business is critical to the process of planning and delivering HR practices. Solution creation and implementation. All HR work depends on successful relationships, and excellent interpersonal and communication skills are of utmost importance. Interpersonal and communication skills. All HR work depend on successful relationship, and excellent interpersonal and communication skills are of utmost importance. Citizenship for the future. Over and above the HR strategic partner role, the new business environment requires HR professionals who can drive innovation, optimize technology, and contribute to sustainability of organizations and the environment. Applying 5 capabilities in driving business excellence. Strategy. HR professionals contribute to business strategy by drafting HR strategies aligned with the overall strategy of the organization. However, HR strategy is more than just alignment. It requires the ability and influence to create people-driven business strategies in partnership with other executives. Talent management. Once business and HR strategies are clear, HR professionals should work with the line management to implement a talent management plan for the organization. HR governance, risk, and compliance. Governing the HR functions to make effective people decisions for the business include managing HR risk and ensuring compliance with employment laws, rules, codes, and HR standards. This elevates the business from business partner to HR governor. Analytics and measurement. Another one capability is the ability to generate a systemic and integrated approach to HR analytics and measure in demonstrating HR impact on the business. HR service delivery. Ultimately, HR professionals should be able to deliver high-quality HR products and services for the organization and meet or exceed the needs of management, employees, and other key stakeholders. I'd like to thank you all for coming and listening to my subsection of continuing professional development. And if you guys have any questions that you would like to ask, you are welcome to do so, whether it is via comment or whether you ask us verbally. But I'm going to pass it on now to my next group member who's going to speak, Nandin Yakaza.
Good afternoon, class. My name is Nandan Yagaza, and I will be going over the last part of this video, which is the personal development plans. So let's get started and let's quickly conclude the video. So let's start with the critical elements of an effective personal development plan. So that consists of taking ownership and personal responsibility for your continuing personal development. And this means that your personal development should be something that you are passionate about and something that you find of importance in your career. So it has to be something that you're striving towards, that you taking the lead in. It mustn't be something that someone is trying to convince you to do. So the second critical element is to write a clear statement of where you want to be at the end of a specified period. And this specified period can be dependent on you. Most people usually do a 5, a 10, a 15, and a 20-year plan. But this just means you have to write down your goals. You have to write down a clear statement of where you would like to be in the next 5, 10, 15, or 20 years. And we did this in the previous assignment where we talked about some of the goals that we would personally like to achieve in our lives and how we'd specifically like to go about those things. So number 3 is plan appropriate learning activities you will undertake to acquire the knowledge and skills to meet these needs and goals. So setting SMART goals. You have to be specific about the appropriate learning activities, the specific activities that you're going to be taking to undertake and acquire the knowledge and skills that you want to get. So when we talk about SMART skills, it means we have to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based. So when you're planning your goals, it has to be all set out for you so that you know every step of the way, so that there can't be any excuses, and that you know where you should be at every point of the step. Identify the resources and support you will require to attain your goals. When you do this, you're basically putting it into fruition. It's almost like building Legos. It's a different kind of story when you're building Legos, when you have the idea, and then when you go and collect your Legos, you are now getting your resources, and the support you might need is now you're bringing everything together to then go about getting to your goal of whatever you want to achieve. Identify the criteria which will help you determine that you're on course. So I refer to these as small goals or small rewards. So usually in fitness challenges you would say, in a week I'd like to do this, and if I do this I get this reward, or if I achieve this I get this reward. So set criteria which will help you determine that you are on course and where you're supposed to be. So the next one, continued. Number 6 is identify intermediate stages where you can review progress. So this would be, if we look at it at a school context, this would be small assignments and sometimes a test. So it's to ensure that there actually is progress that is occurring. So when you set intermediate stages where you can review progress, it's almost like when you were in high school, or if you played sport in high school, there was beep tests where you had to test your fitness to check that you are progressing. In school there would be pop quizzes or exams or tests before an exam to ensure that you are where you should be. So you need to do this for your personal development so that you can make sure that you are going in the direction that you want to be heading in. Put learning into action, selecting the best way to achieve goals. Now this is where the plans and the action meet the paper. Now it's all good and well to write everything down, but now things need to be done. So this is where you have to be honest with yourself and say, okay, these are the action plans that I know I will fulfill and will actually do. So this is that part where you have to tell yourself, okay, now I actually have to do what I've planned and actually have to put it into a weekly schedule or a monthly schedule. Evaluate the outcomes of your learning. Do the activities you undertook really meet the requirements, and if any further learning needs to be done. So this would be considered a review or going back to check if what you planned out to do has been achieved, and if it met the requirements you initially had. If it meets the requirements you initially had, it means it has been successful, and if it doesn't, it means there's something you can go back on to fix. And it says here, does it meet your requirements, and if any further learning needs to take place. So sometimes you might not have managed to achieve everything, and there might need to be another thing that you need to do as an additive or further learning so that you achieve your goal eventually. Because failure is not really the be-all and end-all. It just means there's something more that you need to do, or an adjustment that needs to be made. So reflect on progress made. These include achievements gained and how they will help you in your current work environment. So now that you've done everything that you've done, you need to determine how these things and how these achievements that all this work that you've put in, all these hours, all these sacrifices that you've made, how do they now become practical and help you advance your career? How do they help you in your work environment? These are the things you need to figure out. And it helps because then you'll know how to implement it into your work immediately. It won't be something of, yeah, I'll use it for when I'm promoted. If you show them now before you're promoted, then it's almost like, you know what, okay, you see that person for this, and that. So always think about those type of things. On to the next one, complete the necessary CPB work. This means before you even conduct your CPB, you have to conduct the work before that, the research, the market research, all of those stuff. And it says your modern business environment influences on CPDs, meaning the business environment 5 years ago and the business environment now are two completely different environments. Obviously there are similar aspects, but we have changed as people. We are currently in a pandemic that 5 years ago we would never have thought about. So yeah, you have to look at those type of things when you're thinking about your CPD, and think about how the modern business environment will affect your CPDs. Think about all those things to make sure that you're keeping them in mind, and it's forward thinking, and it applies to your personality type, but it also applies to where the business sees itself and the business cultures. Those type of things are important to think about. So how to determine what should be in your personal CPD: current competencies versus future competencies. So you know where you are currently and what your competencies are, and that's important. But you also need to determine what your future competencies want to be. What do you want some of your future competencies to be? And once you've done that, you can then determine the gap and how to fill the gap, how to get to where you need to be, how you got to where you are, and how you're going to get further than your future competencies. This is important because when you know your current competencies, it means completing the CPD is easier for you. And when you know where you want to be, you can then do the work to fill in that gap to get you to where you need to be. And effective personal development depends on your ability to do a realistic and objective self-assessment so that you really face your strengths and opportunities for growth and improvement. And this is important. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to do that self-assessment, that hard work of being honest with yourself and knowing, you know what, sometimes I procrastinate. Sometimes there might be those days where I know I'm just going to lay in that bed, or I might have a pile of work, but Netflix is important that day, or something else is important that day, but you know you will work when the time comes. You have to know yourself. That self-assessment, you know your strengths, you know your weaknesses, you know what you can turn into an opportunity for growth, and you know what you can improve to be a better employee and to be a better professional in the future. So you have to know those things. You have to be honest with yourself, and that being honest with yourself is sometimes more difficult than being honest with other people. So that journey is not going to be an easy one, I can say for sure. On to the next aspect. Some self-assessment questions that you can ask yourself. I won't really go into much detail because these you can apply them to your life, and just it's kind of self-explanatory. So the first one is, what improvements can you see as a result of your learning? Is it increased confidence, more job satisfaction, less stress maybe, chance of new responsibilities, chance of promotion, increased quality of work, better feedback on performance, enhanced client base? You have to see the results of your learning. What improvements has this learning made? As I'm not going to go into detail. For your CPD to be successful, you need to keep records in two main areas. Your record of achievements, and this is a full record of the actions and activities you have undertaken, together with a listing of the respective outcomes you have achieved. So this is almost like a CV, but a condensed one. So like, you know, where they basically say, brag about yourself, please. Tell us if you were prefect, or if you got this award, or if you got top achiever. Those type of things. Tell us about those type of things. Keep your achievements on record so that you know what you're capable of and where you want to be. The next one, your personal development plan. You see, this is also about where you want to be. This shows the way forward that has been planned at various stages of your career and the outcomes you need to achieve at each stage. This may change as you get older, of course, and reach different stages in your life. So this is your plans that you have. Similar to that assignment I referred to earlier, these are the plans there. You say by 25, I want to be a manager. By 30, I want to be this. By 35, I want to have this. Those type of things, we want those now. Where would you like to be at each stage of your life? Obviously, it's going to change when people have kids. Stuff gets changed a bit, but we like those type of plans. Where would you like to be in the future? And be specific about those type of things so that you know if you don't get there, you'll say, okay, maybe another 2 years, maybe another year. But when you have a plan, it's almost like, okay, you know what, in the back of my mind, I've already said this is this, and so and so and so and so is what I'm going to do. So to be successful, to have a successful CPD, you have to make sure you have those two things. Next one, building an organizational CPD strategy. CPD is essential to individual HRD practitioners, and organizational CPD strategy is also needed to ensure that HRD practitioners are collectively developed as a group to meet the needs of the business. So this means that a CPD strategy just doesn't only work for individual benefits, but it can also work on a holistic organizational level to ensure that not only are employees being skilled and being upskilled with their skills and their knowledge, but it's also pushing the group, the organization, in a direction that they want to go to meet their needs, their current needs or future needs, so they could be game changers or they could create something new to gain an edge against their competition. So it's not just for personal needs, but it's for the collective as well. An organizational CPD strategy brings a number of advantages so number one, showing how the views and priorities of service users and members of the public are influencing CPD activity within the organization. So this shows that even though businesses operate in a market and in isolation based on their cultures and how they do things, they are highly influenced by their customers and the people that they service and the outside community, let's say. They are highly influenced by trends, market stuff, things that are new ways of thinking. They are highly influenced by that, which means your CPD should also be highly influenced by that. Your way of thinking should be ever growing. Describing how system and policies to ensure equity of access to CPD activities. So your systems and your policies should make sure that all your employees have access to CPD activities. Meaning CPD shouldn't just be for top executives or the highly important people, as you say. It should be try to upskill people. You have one of those, those news stories, those ones that they have in the newspaper. I saw one the other day that they were talking about a guy who joined an organization and now he's the CEO, where they go from janitor to CEO. Or those type of things are less common these days. Have those type of stories where you're trying to upskill people the most, make them learn a lot about not just your organization, but about stuff that they are really interested in. Showing how CPD objectives links with national policy objectives. So once you look at your national policies, you kind of have to determine in which direction your country's policies are heading and try to branch it in that direction. And if you look at South Africa, you can see trends, what type of skills are becoming critical. So look at that, look at those important things. Look at some of the laws that are coming into place and some of the policies that are gaining traction, especially in a pandemic type situation, and plan ahead. Next, offering guidance to staff on how CPD needs can be met in partnership with management, supervisors, and others. And as I said before, we shouldn't just look at it that only the top management or supervisors are going to get this. This can be a partnership where we bring management in, we bring supervisors in to help the lower people upskill themselves and gain a new perspective. So you just look at it that way. It's merely a perspective and giving them skills to look at their job from a different perspective and a new light. Setting out specific plans for ongoing CPD activities, covering mandatory, generic, and speciality specific subjects. This just means you have to cover a wide spectrum when you do these type of things. You have to look at not only the everyday dealings or not just generic stuff, but look at speciality specific stuff. So those critical skills I spoke about, look at those type of things. If you have people with critical skills in your organization, train them so that they are more valuable. Look at the mandatory subjects, the stuff that everyone should know about the business, how the business is making money, how it operates on a daily basis, and enforce those things to be the culture. You must know those. It must be like the back of your hand. You can walk in on a Sunday, or they can wake you up with cold water and say, what is the mandatory parts of our business? And they'll be able to tell you as if it was a normal thing to them. Setting out the process for matching education needs to service user and organizational needs at a local level. So once you're matching your educational needs to service user, it means the education that is being given matches what your user and how your product, let's say for example, how your product needs to go out. So you educate them, but that must link to how your product needs to go out at a local level, at the level of how you're servicing your clients, how you're servicing your employees on a grander scale. So just look at it that way. And some of the challenges for HRD can be solved through CPD, and this includes an involvement at a strategic level of businesses and development of their roles as business partners, fostering learning partnerships across and outside organizations. This is just another form of networking where once you involve other people, you kind of gain all businesses have their culture, of course, and how they go about doing things, but once you look at how other businesses do things, it might offer a solution to a problem that you never thought you had. A need to understand the business and their part in creating competitive advantage and added value. This is important because competitive advantage is not gained just from the numbers and finance and production. It's also gained from how productive your people are. And HRD understands that. But CPD goes further and says once you understand the business and their part in creating competitive advantage, you can then add value not only in the business but in your employees' lives by upskilling them to upskill the business. Creation of HRD strategies that need to be integrated with business strategies. Creation of HRD strategies that focus on building and embedding a fast and responsive learning culture that helps building the organizational core competencies and future capabilities. This is simple. Embed the culture of learning into the organization, make sure it's responsive, fast, not always, because fast doesn't apply to everyone and it doesn't benefit everyone, but make sure it's responsive, because once it's responsive, you're getting interactions, and then that becomes a culture, and the organizational core competencies and future capabilities are it's like quick firing neutrons. They can be easily determined, and then we can figure out a way to get there quicker. Next one, working with managers and learners on introducing learning cultures that create and share knowledge and also have the ability to develop core competencies. So I spoke about this earlier, just a collaborative effort, understanding the implications of high-performance work organizations, and HRD's role in creating and facilitating those appropriate learning environments. I also spoke about this, HRD's role in making sure that the organization is high-performance, and their role in creating and facilitating those learning environments. Once it becomes a culture, it becomes embedded in how the organization operates. Promoting the value of workplace learning. Once workplace learning becomes a culture and a way of life in the organization, that's where it becomes easier to now indulge and to be a part of this. And CPD then becomes something that employees are excited for. Practical guidelines for CPD, I'll just go through these quickly. Spend time working in the business, job shadowing, simple aspect. Move employees around a bit to see what other people in other departments are doing. Invest in formal learning, business-related degrees or specific academic HRD. Send your employees out for formal learning. Get them graduated, get them qualified, get them to be get them their master's degrees, and if they don't have a degree, get them their degree, those type of things, so that they feel liberated and upskilled. Invest in informal learning and knowledge building. This is networking. Networking is the most powerful tool in the business world because it gains you access to things you never thought you could gain access to or even existed. Request secondment, which is job rotation. Rotate the people around, similar to number one. Rotate people to different departments so that they gain a new perspective. Take up non-executive position to gain exposure to senior managers from other business sectors and finding new perspectives. I already spoke about this, new perspectives. Take top management and bring them down so they can get a new perspective of what other people are dealing with that the executives don't even get a whisper in the ear about. Coaches and mentors. Mentors are important in business, in life in general, because they offer you a different part of life that you as a young self would never even think about, because you're so you're so lost in your young ways, your youthful ways. And coaches are also important, not only for fitness but also for organizational things, as they offer a lot. They develop you and build you into something that you might not see yourself in. CPD program principles, we'll just run through these as well. Development should be owned and managed by the individual learner. I spoke about this at the beginning. Development should be continuous, lifelong learning. CPD is a personal matter, and the effective learner knows best when it is time to learn. As I said, because you are the one conducting this, you should know yourself. This is part of the self-assessment. You know when you learn best. It goes down to that, plain and simple. Learning objectives should be clear and serve organization or client needs as well as individual goals. I spoke about this. This goes into making it a holistic approach of you get what you want, you being upskilled, the organization gets what it wants, it gets where it wants to be, and then clients' needs are also serviced. Regular investment of time in learning should be seen as an essential part of professional life and not an optional extra. You make it a part of your culture, you make it a part of your being to be a lifelong learner. Development plans start with current learning needs and note previous development and must be fitting in regards to their career plan, personal life and organizational needs. I already spoke about this. Next one. The SABPP, the CPD example. You can read this. It goes and it explains into detail how the South African Board of People Practices, how they went about doing the CPD, and it's actually quite insightful. It gives you an insight into some of the stuff I spoke about before. So yeah, go ahead and read that. That would be very insightful. Then the case study speaks about Utabo, and he considers himself stuck in the mud. He's an HR manager in a medium-sized company. He recognized that the workplace around him was changing rapidly. He did some research, and that indicated that being good at what he did was no longer good enough. As we spoke about before, you have to be changing with the times. If he wanted to get ahead of the competition, he would have to update his skills. But how? Who? He thought, who in the organization can help me? Where do I start? So it goes about how he went about those things. Read about that. It's also very interesting. It also gets you to apply the stuff we've been talking about. The key learning point is just fly through this as well. These are important. I will go through these, but I think you'd get them quite easily once you read them. So yeah, South African HRD professionals and their organizations can learn from international models of CPD. A business' biggest mistake is not trying to expand its horizons, so learn from wherever you can. Information can come from the most unexpected sources. CPD is needed to ensure the continuous development of HRD professionals after they have completed their formal studies. The SABPP provides a CPD program for the development of HRD professionals. Clear documentation is needed to ensure effective monitoring of CPD. Every HRD professional should have a personal development plan forming the basis of CPD. So those, I think, are quite self-explanatory. The conclusion. So, why engage in CPD, you might be asking. If after this part you're still asking, I would understand, but let me give you a simple answer, is that the shelf life of a degree is 3 years, and that's even a push and a half, because that's declining as well. This means that maintaining competence and learning new skills must be a top priority for all professionals. This also falls under an ethical responsibility and a pragmatic one for critical career success. This takes great professionals and turns them into exceptional professionals, because learning is a lifelong process. Meaning you can do this, you cannot do this, but at the end of the day, for you to be great, to be exceptional, to be where you want to be, where those goals that you set, to be where you want to be, it involves lifelong learning. Because we don't know everything there is to know. A degree, as I said earlier, as soon as you leave, it's on the decline. There's new information out as soon as you've left that organization and that learning institution. So continue learning. Be a sponge. Absorb as much information as you can. I'd like to thank you for listening to our presentation. It's the end of the video. So yeah, thank you guys very much. Enjoy your day.